Okay, I understand that.
Yeah,
So,
as long as I'm coming through kind of well, then hopefully that's good enough.
yeah, it should be pretty good. So, what did you want to talk about today? Just to sort of explain to chat.
Okay, yeah. So, not it's not like I want to start any kind of drama with you or anything like that whatsoever, because like I actually really do appreciate the work that you do online, and I think that you do a really good job. But there are a couple of things that I thought that I wanted to address with you for a little while now, and I'm going to go through a few of it with you today. And it kind of has to do not directly with, but kind of tangentially to the way that you've been calling out a lot of other leftists online lately, like Zabo and like Deadman. So basically, the very first thing that I want to ask you is why do you think it's so important to engage so much in leftist drama?
Um, well, I don't know if it's necessarily important, but I'm human. I like to indulge in things. There are individuals that are on the left that I definitely think do deserve to be called out. I guess you could say I'm hypocritical because I attack people who call me or Vosh out. But I think there's probably pretty good reasons. I mean, the two people that you brought up as an example, one of them on Twitter is like a black separatist who wants to form a black ethno state in America and is like in favor of segregating black and white people. So
Yeah,
I
I would be really really careful on telling people what they believe and not asking them what they believe. So maybe you should ask him what he believes before you start making a bunch of assumptions.
I mean, I looked up what it said in his bio, and
That's good. That's good that you looked up his bio, but maybe you should actually talk to him and not just assume a bunch of stuff.
he he alluded that I was a white
He,
supremacist.
I don't, it, I don't really care, right? You have a platform that's very, very large, right? And the things that you say about people have a very big effect. So if you're going around spreading lies about people, then that's going to have a big problem.
Wait, okay, so for starters, the lies that they were spreading about me are completely unfounded. If what I was saying about this person was a lie, then I would apologize for it, but I'm pretty sure it's not because I actually used. I would say
Right,
I went off
but
some pretty
that's not,
like telling
let me stop you right
evidence.
there. Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. So here's the thing. You assumed, and that's the biggest problem, is that you assumed before you actually talked to this person. Have you talked to this person?
I mean, they've beyond like Twitter arguments of them calling me a white supremacist. No.
Okay, so then maybe you should, before you start telling me what they believe, ask them what they believe. So go ahead, carry on.
Yeah, so the main reason why I called this person out was because they were calling me, or heavily alluding to me being a white supremacist. It's why they were saying I was white with like the HWYTE. I looked it up. Whenever you're called white, it's a reference to like Richard Spencer and other popular neo-Nazis that put a lot of emphasis on the H at the beginning of white. And it's like when you call someone white, it's like a slang word for like white supremacist. I looked up what it said in their bio. They had New Africa in their bio. Looked it up. New Africa is a black separatist proposition for a black ethno state in the southeast United States. So I looked this person up. I see, okay, so this person calling me a white supremacist is seemingly, I mean, it's in their bio, in favor of a black ethno state that's very popular with black separatists. Okay, this person's probably pretty unreasonable. The ideas that they advocate for are probably pretty bad, so I called them out.
So you came to all those conclusions because you, with your biased view, read somebody's Twitter bio and decided to make all of these assumptions about this person, and then went online and continued to defame this person because you don't like that they had something written in their bio. Do you think that
What they
this is
had written,
helpful to the left?
what they had in their bio
No,
was a
no, no, no.
reference to
Just
an
answer my
ethno
question.
state.
Answer my question. Do you think that this is actually helpful to the left?
No, I don't think me taking a shit in the morning is helpful to the left. We do things that aren't helpful to the left every day, because we are human, and sometimes we indulge in things that make us happy, especially when somebody calls you out for something false, and you look at them and you're like, wow, this person's kind of a piece of shit. They advocate for pretty seemingly advocate for a black ethno state.
So you immediately jump to a conclusion, right? Immediately jump to the defensive, and then started to get into a fight with this person because you couldn't take some criticism on Twitter from somebody that has almost no following at all. So
Wait,
again, I
are we,
ask you, what
wait,
is the point? What is the
wait,
point of this? Let me ask you this, Xander. What is the point of getting into all of these leftist drama? What is the point of it? Because I need to know why you need to do.
Okay, so I'll acknowledge that question in a second. So
Sure.
it wasn't criticism. They were saying me and Vosh are white supremacists. heavily at least alluding to it. I mean, I looked up what white means. That's what it means when you get called that. They were saying that me and Vosh are white supremacists and need to stay in our lane.
So he didn't actually say it. He said, so you're assuming that he said it because he used the word white.
Are you aware of are you aware of what's his name? He does the alt-right the alt-right playbook videos.
Sounds like it's going way off topic.
No, it's not going off topic. I'm just trying to bring this back around.
I think his name is Ian Danskin. What about him?
Yeah, he did a video called "The Card Says Moops," where a lot of people who are in certain political areas, especially the alt-right, will say something, and they're heavily alluding to something. Everyone knows what this means. Innuendo Studios, thank you. Will say something and they'll make a big allusion to an idea that they're advocating for, that they're talking about, and then whenever you call them out on it, they'll say, well, I didn't say exactly that, right? And that's what you're doing right now. You're doing the card says moops. Literally everybody in this community, I look up what the meaning of calling like someone white, what that is. It's alluding to someone being a white supremacist. I looked up what New Africa was. It's a white...
You tend to do this a lot with black people and with the black organizations and stuff like that, and people on the left, where you tend to use the same arguments that people are using against people on the right and people that have a lot of power against people that are minorities and have absolutely no power. So that's not really a strong argument as far as I'm concerned, that, oh, this person said this one thing to you that sounded a little bit offensive, so you had to use your massive platform to attack them. I'm sorry, but that does not sound like it is actually useful.
Wait, do you think only white people and like white supremacists use dog whistles to advocate for their beliefs?
Oh, absolutely not. I use dog whistles all the time to advocate for my own beliefs.
Okay,
everybody does.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I think that person is doing. In fact, I'm quite certain they were, because I looked at the meaning of the things they were calling me, and it's very well known to be a colloquial, I apologize, euphemism for when you're referring to somebody being a white supremacist. They said they made a big thread that got that, like, I think nearly 1,000 likes, saying that the idea of black supremacy or black ethno-states is an alt-right talking point. Meanwhile, this person has a reference to a proposed black ethno-state in their bio. That is what New Africa is, and we're alluding to me and Vosh being white supremacists. I feel like it's worth calling that out when people are lying about me and spreading misinformation, and it's getting quite a bit of traction. The reason why I think it's important to talk about this stuff, which was your original question, is because, sure, I may have a massive platform, comparatively speaking to these people, I suppose, but nonetheless, them lying about me affects me as a person. I'm still human. It affects my business prospects because, hey, people are hearing these lies about me and spreading them around when they've never even heard about me before, and then boom, my reputation starts to get harmed.
I'm going to stop you right there. The only reason why anybody heard any of these lies that he was telling about you was because you literally did the what is it called? The Streisand effect, where you literally did the Streisand effect, where you decided to go in and make a big stink about this little tiny YouTuber who basically he has a very small following, right? Just like the same thing with Zabos the other day, another very small following. That never needed to balloon into the way that it did. You brought that upon yourself. Like I said on Twitter to you, you're your own worst enemy, because none of these things would have amounted to anything at all. Nobody would have ever even known about it if you didn't bring it up.
This isn't true. You
decided to bring it up.
No,
you decided to engage in it.
I used to think that too.
You decided to engage in it, and then it ended up blowing up into another big thing. But you know what? I'm not going to talk about specific people here, because if we talk about specific, we're going to get further and further away from the actual point. And the actual point is, why do you feel it necessary to do this? And you said a second ago that because it hurts your business if other people are talking about you.
Well, does it just hurt my business? It hurts my reputation, and it hurts me as a person, right? Like, I may have like a big audience, but I'm still human, right? Like, if people are out there lying about me, saying terrible shit about me, it hurts my feelings. So I'm going to talk about it.
I'm on board with you on that one.
All right.
What happens to every single person that's a large celebrity?
You get shit. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not like part of the territory, but it's worth calling it out.
And if they were to go and attack every small, little, insignificant person that made fun of them, would they look good or bad?
Depends what they're saying about them.
Depends what they're saying about them. Okay, so if somebody just randomly on Twitter, some new metal fan went and called out Britney Spears and said that her music was terrible and that she's a cunt. If Britney Spears went and called out that person, and then all of a sudden that person got attacked by thousands of her fans, is that a good or a bad look?
That would probably be a bad look, but I don't feel I've done anything.
Exactly.
Okay, let's make a more appropriate comparison, actually. Let's say somebody goes on Twitter, they get a few thousand likes on their tweet saying Britney Spears is a rapist. or a sex pest who abuses their fans or some shit like that, or Britney Spears is a white supremacist and it gets like a shit ton of a ton of likes. Do you think it's probably worth calling that out and saying this isn't true? You are lying about
Is
me.
that, but that's actually not what happened, though, is it, Xander? You're blowing things way out of proportion. You're taking somebody that said the word white and another person that redrew your logo as something that may resemble a bit of a swastika, and you made such a big deal about that that you ended up engaging with it and brought it to the attention of thousands of people, everybody in your audience. And why
Wait.
exactly did you do that? Why
Okay.
did you do that? What is
Okay.
the point of doing that, Xander?
So with the white thing, like this is a well-known. This is the person was calling me a white supremacist. They're implying they even said that I'm racist. Like they even outright said that I was racist in a later tweet. I'm pretty sure. And like
You
made a
admit
big
that we all have internalized racism.
yes. They were talking about being overtly hating black people, not internalized
Okay, well, and
like
like I said
implicit
before, I'm not
racism.
going to talk specifically about these individual people
Well, I
because
want to
this is
talk
a
about
bigger.
individual
This
examples
has to do
because
with
you
a
take
larger trend.
issue.
All right, then you can talk about the individual examples, but then we're going to move over to what the actual point is, the bigger, broader issue here, the thing that actually matters, right? Which is the trend of you constantly doing this. So if you want to talk about this specific, go ahead and defend yourself. Tell me how this one specific instance is different than all of the others. But after that, we're going to talk about the trend. So go ahead.
Sure. I mean, we can go to the sky. You brought up Skylar Zabo as well. This person edited my logo to be a swastika and made a video that was completely unresearched, calling me and Vosh class reductionists. I went to the comments. Granted, a lot of the comments were, thankfully, were people saying this isn't true, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. But a lot of other people in the comments were like, yeah, I've never watched Vosh or Xanderhall anymore. I'm glad I now know not to watch them. When I saw comments like that, I was like, oh shit, I need to call this stuff out because this happens a lot. Back when the harem drama thing happened, and I chose not to speak on it and call out people who were accusing me of these things, anytime one of my videos got posted to our Breadtube or anything like that, I would see the comments, shit tons of people, walls of text calling me like a sexual predator and an abuser and shit like that. Now, not only does that stuff affect me, like emotionally, but that stuff also affects my friends, it affects my prospects as trying to become a effective leftist voice. It's worth calling that stuff out. I don't think you need an excuse to call out abusive behavior and people lying about you. Now, granted, I understand, like, there are scenarios where maybe it's, like, not worth calling it out because they're so small and you would just be signal boosting it in the first place. I'll admit that's what I did with the harem drama. If I hadn't responded to it, then it probably wouldn't have blown up as big as it is. But most of the time, the people that I respond to are spreading lies about me and or have a fair amount of traction on their tweets or whatever post they're making, shit talking me. Like I feel like I don't need an excuse to call out like bad behavior or abusive behavior just because they're on the left.
And that, yeah, and that's totally understandable, and I get that, man. Like I'm on your side on that one, and I think that you should be able to call out bad behavior, and when you feel offended, you should definitely be able to engage with those people and actually address it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that necessarily going and doing it in a public way is going to solve the problem. I have personally had problems with both those same individuals, right? But I didn't end up making a big spectacle about it. In fact, I made a video about Zabo, right? And we had an engagement, and we even engaged in the description or in the comments down below, and we had a conversation, right? And we were able to come to a conclusion. It didn't turn into this thing where he called me out, well, at the time it was,
yeah.
yeah,
At the time, yeah.
she now, but
Okay.
then it was he. Yeah. But so she called me out, and I didn't. I could have called her out, but I didn't, right? And we engaged in a different way. I'm not saying that that's the number one way to handle everything. And obviously, if you feel upset, and I'm not going to tell you how to engage with somebody if you feel upset, but I just feel like sometimes we have to take more thought into why we're doing these things and to actually how it affects the broader situation. Because in that one specific instance, yes, that makes you mad, and yes, it pisses you off, and yes, that can do some damage to your reputation. But right, because the Streisand effect is a real thing. The more you engage with that thing, right, with that criticism, the more you're going to blow it up. And in fact, I sent a tweet to you about this a little while ago, but it was buried a little bit in a lot of things, and I'll go through exactly what happens. Okay, it's
Okay.
a cycle, right? It starts off with a small criticism. It can come from somebody in your audience. It can come from another creator. It doesn't matter what it is. But inevitably, this small criticism usually gets blown out of context. right? And it gets blown out of proportion. And usually that's because people don't understand what people mean when they're typing to each other online. For example, writing white on Twitter, maybe that person didn't mean what you think that they mean, but regardless, we'll move past that for right now. So a small criticism gets blown out of proportion, right? The content creator, you or another content creator, is drawn in, right? And this contentious issue is then exacerbated because you talk about it. It gains more attention, it gains more traction, and this obviously leads to a public feud, which is exactly what has happened, right? And that leads to lines being drawn, factions being formed, people calling each other SJWs or Wokescolds or dirtbags or whatever, and then it goes back to the beginning where people start criticizing again and not understanding what each other is saying. So when you're engaging with these leftist drama circles, right, you're inevitably engaging with a cycle that hurts the left. It hurts our entire cause, and it makes everybody that engages with that have a misunderstood view of the entire situation. If they watch your channel, they're going to get a completely different view of the way that the situation was. Whereas if they watch Zabos's channel, it's a completely different view again, right? So this creates factionalism. This is exactly what happened in 2016 in the skeptic community, right? This is exactly the kind of behavior that liberal, neoliberal capitalists want to push in our everyday lives. When we're being pitted against Republican versus Democrat and that sort of thing. And it's being engaged in here. So I have to ask you again, and I'm going to do it a little less combatively this time. What do you gain from getting into all of these arguments with these people online?
Okay. Really quick, can I acknowledge all the things you said there? Because I wrote down some of your points because you went on for a little bit.
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay. So you frame a lot of what I get as being criticism, small criticisms and whatnot. Most of what I get is not criticism. Now, if somebody says something like, Xander Hall, not really a big fan of him. I don't think he reads enough theory. I don't think he talks enough about class struggle, or I think he talks too much about this. I don't think he talks enough about this. I don't think his rhetorical skills are good enough. I don't think he's a good debater. That's like criticism. That's cool. Okay. I'll never quote tweet somebody for that. I'll never get mad at them for that. That's just my own, I'm never going to get angry at somebody about that. That's fine. But if somebody is making up lies about me or sending actual abusive behavior my way, as a matter of fact, the other day, I don't know if you were involved with this, there was somebody who was unironically saying that I deserved to get abused by my mom because she was mad at me because I was a racist, because I was a reactionary back when I was 16. That was like unironically trying to justify my childhood abuse. That was pretty bad, okay? I don't think that qualifies as being a small criticism, nor do I think accusing me of being racist or a class reductionist or a sex pest, I don't think that's a small criticism either. Especially when a lot of these actually get like quite a bit of traction. You also said pick and choose your battles. My response to that is, I usually make fun of people who are on Twitter just saying something just overtly stupid about me that's easy to disprove, that's just I'll quote tweet it and I'll be like, wow, look at this idiot. And we'll have a fun time laughing at them. But if they're overtly engaging in some really dishonest bad behavior or abusive behavior, then we call them out and we actually make a big deal out of it. Usually my friends, my subs and my friends and stuff like that will reply to them in the comments and stuff like that and becomes an argument. But at that point, I think it's pretty justified. Then you said leftist drama hurts the left. They start it, and if they aren't, the people that that usually start the drama are them. They're the ones who start the drama. They say some lie about me on Twitter. Sometimes it's other streamers and YouTubers. Corvidae did it. The Izzy Bear person did it. Skylar Zabo did it. These people will make a big accusation about me, and then even if I do confront them and have a debate with them, they'll fall back on everything and refuse to talk about their indefensible claims they made about me, and then go back on something that they can attack me on that they know that I'm not really going to stand my ground on, the ableism shit. I'm yeah, it's probably a good criticism, and they come out of it looking good optically. That's what Corvidae did. And then you said this is what happened to the skeptic community that caused its downfall. I was in the skeptic community, or I was in the alt-right, Bloodsports Debate Lord community as a fan when this happened. I don't think this is necessarily what caused it. What brought the downfall of the skeptic community was or what I should say weakened it, was the start of a lot of infighting for a reason. We had Milo basically being outed as a pedophile. You had Andy Worski getting arrested and like turning his back on like a bunch of his friends. You had who else? What happened? Yeah, and Andy Worski was like the cause of a lot of it because it's how a lot of them communicated. Like they would all like Richard Spencer, no bullshit. All of those people would go on Andy Worski's podcast, and when Andy Worski came out as a race realist, all of the big and like as an alt writer, a lot of the big neo-Nazi types were friends with him, but a lot of the more like conservative-y types decide to distance themselves from him, and so they didn't have as much audience to share. People like Chris Reagan and Sean had distanced themselves from people like Sargon, which cut off a lot of the pipeline. Like that, and then obviously Breadtube happened, and Breadtube just out-argued these people. Destiny came along, debated these people into irrelevancy. That's how the skeptic community fell. This isn't how, this isn't like the reverse version of how the skeptic community fell. I was part of it when it happened. I don't think this is a fair comparison, but did I like respond to all of your things there adequately?
Yeah. You responded to a bunch of arguments that weren't arguments. I was literally explaining to you a cycle on how things work, right? So you can refute or try to refute the stages of the cycle, but I mean, it's literally just how all of those things work. You literally okay. So
It's not a cycle though. These people.
Yeah, no, it actually is a cycle. It is a cycle. The exact same thing happens with almost every single criticism that happens online. You can talk to American Johnson about this. You can talk to you can talk to actually perfect person to talk to about this would probably be Peter Coffin, because he can tell you straight up that every single time that somebody has a problem with what he's saying, it's usually because they misunderstood what he said, not because they started some kind of thing because they hate him.
I mean, if we want to talk about Peter Coffin, we can talk about when a bunch of like what I call Wokescolds on Twitter accused him of being a pedophile and grooming his wife, and it got like a shit ton of traction on Twitter. And I actually made a video about it.
Okay, what does that have to do with?
Because you're saying it's a cycle, because you acknowledge them and then they go on with it. That's what I'm talking about here.
No, Xander. Okay. So a small criticism gets blown out of proportion, right? The content creator, you, gets drawn in. This makes a contentious issue because then you blow that out of proportion. It leads to a public feud, and lines are drawn and factions are formed. This is literally what happens in every single argument that happens on Twitter. I don't know how you could dispute that at all. That's literally the cycle of what happens to people on Twitter. But if you want to dispute that, that's fine. I'll try to explain it in a different way. Twitter makes money from every single time you engage in leftist drama or in drama in general, right? Because it makes money through clicks, right? Every time you click anything online, every time you engage in anything, tweet, comment, thread, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Twitter makes money, or Facebook or YouTube or whoever, right? And it makes the most money. It makes the most money off of drama because drama gets a lot of attention.
Right? I don't think the argument that Twitter makes money from like people getting into tweet fights is really like the angle to go at this from.
Why?
Because Twitter's making money anyway. I don't think like an individual corporation making, like, don't get me wrong, anti-capitalist, all that. The angle you probably want to go from
Xander, you're misunderstanding me. The incentive, right, is that since Twitter makes money off of drama, it incentivizes drama.
Well, yeah, that's how the platform is structured.
Which is exactly what's happening with you, is that every single time somebody makes a little tweet or a comment or something like that, it gets you upset and you engage in that drama. And when you engage in that drama, it ends up creating more drama, which creates more drama, which creates more drama, right? So then that's why I asked you at the beginning, what is the point of getting into all of these fights, right? If you know, or at least now you know, that it's going to cause more infighting, more factionalism, more drama, and be less helpful to the left. I don't see where the doing a cost-benefit analysis on this, because somebody actually hurt your feelings or because they made you upset or whatever, and you have such a massive platform and you end up performing this sort of cycle, I don't see how it's beneficial in any way to the left or even to you financially, personally, or for your business to continue to do these sorts of things, because now you have a huge faction of people online that hate you without ever even seeing your video. And that's not fair to you because you do great content. Some of the stuff that I've seen that you do is some of the most amazing stuff ever. You have incredibly large amounts of views. You have incredibly strong, steadfast audience. They care about what you have to say, and they listen to the things that you come up with, right? And that's why I have such a problem with this, is that when you engage in the drama, you specifically, right, have a big platform, so it makes things worse, my man.
Sure. So really quick, I get where you're coming from here. Obviously, if you feed the trolls, they're going to continue to do what they're going to do. But in my experience, even when I would ignore these people, they would do what they're doing anyway, and they'll even increase their accusations. You've characterized what I usually end up getting as like small criticisms quite a bit, but I kind of want to ask you for an example because like when I respond to these people, it's usually like claims that I'm like racist or transphobic or even like some kind of sexual predator. Like I don't think
What
those are
does it?
like I don't think those are
What
small
does it matter?
criticisms. Wait,
Then
because
if somebody is no, Xander, hold on a
wait,
second.
okay, if it
If
was like
somebody is
actual small criticisms, I would
Xander,
completely agree with you,
my
dude.
guy, my
But
guy,
there's
my
a
guy,
big
my
difference
guy,
here.
my guy. I agree with you. There is no argument for me on that one, right? And if
Okay.
I made it sound like it was only small criticisms coming at you, then I did not mean that because some massive criticisms have been laid against you, man. Like some bullshit that is not even fucking fair. And I am on board with you on that. I don't think that it's fair that you get hit with that kind of shit. I don't get fair. I think that it's fair that Peter gets hit with that kind of shit or anybody, right? It's not fair. All I'm saying is that when you engage with it publicly, right, you create a drama cycle that creates more problems, right? It's not a matter of like this hurts or this sucks or this is unjust or anything like that. You're right. You're
Hmm.
100% right. It is. And it is when it happens to Britney Spears too, and it is when it happens to Macklemore, and it is when it happens to Jay Z or whoever, right?
Hmm.
But they don't go out there and they don't start usually attacking other people that are much smaller than them. Sometimes you'll have rap beefs, right? And it'll be with people that are like equal size, right? If you and me wanted to have a beef, I mean, like that would make sense. Still sucks. It still creates more problems. But when you engage with it on the smaller side, it creates even more problems because then it's showing that the audience, sorry, it's showing the audience that you're against them. That's bad, right? And then it also shows a bunch of other things too. So, like I was saying a moment ago, like a lot of people don't like your content and don't like you just because of the persona that you have portrayed online, right? And like without ever even engaging with you, a lot of people have a problem with your stuff, and that's not fair, right? And that's why I want to help. Like that's the only reason why I'm bringing this up to you right now, right? Is because I think that your content is very important, and I think that you're a good guy, and I think that your heart is in the right place. But I also think that like once in a while we need to actually take a second and self-criticize and not. And if I came at you like it was an argumentative way, I did that on purpose, and I'm sorry, right? Because I don't want to argue with you. I just want to like give you a little bit of like I don't know, like a little bit of my thoughts, and hopefully you can see where I'm coming from on this, and hopefully you can open up your heart to it a little bit because you got a really good thing going, my man.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from here. So I would completely agree with you. 100%, we would have no issues if most of what I got was just like criticisms or even just people like jabbing at me, right? I would completely agree with you. And you made the comparison to like real life celebrities like, you know, Britney Spears and whatnot. And I imagine when they get abuse online, it probably affects them quite a bit. One thing I'll tell you right now is maybe you've got really thick skin. I'd say I have pretty thick skin, but I'll admit my weakness is when people who are parts of the communities that I'm trying to advocate for go after me with false accusations about things, right? It could be racism, it could be like obviously being like any type of sexual misconduct, things like that. It does affect me on an emotional level, and that sucks. It happened to ContraPoints. I mean, we can just use her as like the largest example of a political actor within our sphere. ContraPoints didn't like. I'm pretty sure she fell back into alcoholism because of the stress and the amount of depression that she had been bombarded with from the harassment she was getting from these people that were calling her a true scum, transphobe, turf, whatever they were calling her, because they misinterpreted parts of her videos. And she didn't even get like the most uncharitable abuse I've seen on the internet. I think me and Vosh get way more uncharitable abuse, and that affected her in that way, and she's massive. Having a big audience behind you doesn't necessarily proportionally thicken your skin or make you immune or more resistant to abusive behavior. I don't think that you need
No,
justification to fight back against abuse towards you. I don't think the fact that you have a large platform should be an excuse for not responding to abusive behavior being done upon you.
yes and no, right? Okay, so when you have a really large platform and you have a lot of money, like we obviously don't, but say Britney Spears does, right? They hire people to handle those sorts of things for them, right? They have handlers, they have lawyers, they have all those sorts of things. That's a lifestyle that you have that you're not a part of, right? I'm not a part of that either, right? So that's why they are able to handle those sorts of things without having their entire persona or whatever completely destroyed because they have people that handle those sorts of things, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't do you any good, right? As especially for your job, especially like if this is your job, this is the worst possible way that you can handle it, because getting into public feuds, especially with people that are going to be your audience online, or people that can talk word of mouth to other people that are in your audience online, that is going to cause you immeasurable damage. Right, because the way that most of those other people handle it is they have other people, deal with it outside. Right? They'll. Sorry, you're typing a lot, and it's driving me nuts here.
I
I'm
apologize.
losing my train of thought.
I'll mute myself. I'm just typing out what you're saying so I can go over it whenever you finish.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay.
All right. Yes. Yeah, so, like I was saying, they have handlers. They have everybody that's going to handle that sort of thing for them, right? So, and that's not something that you or me are ever going to be able to have, or maybe you will eventually. Maybe I will eventually. Who knows? But up until that point, we're going to have to handle those sorts of criticisms on our own, and handling those sorts of criticisms is very difficult. Especially, not everybody has a super thick skin. I get that. That's totally understandable. You can't be expected to handle every single thing in the most perfect, pristine, upstanding way, right? But you can try, right? You can actually make the conscious decision to try to go out there and
Oh, you cut out.
have been, like a lot of other people have been, on the way that you're actually addressing these people, like actually talking to people and asking them what they believe instead of assuming what they believe because you read their bio, right? If you actually do those sorts of things, then it's going to be a lot better for you. It's going to be a lot better for your business, and it's going to be a lot better optic, something that you talk about a lot, for your entire channel and for the left in general, because then we're not constantly calling people out. What I see here is literally a perfect mirror image of exactly what Wokescolds do, what the quote unquote Wokescolds do, right? And if you're so against Wokescolds and all those sorts of things, right, then you shouldn't be using the same tactics. You should be against those tactics. You go ahead.
Sure. I'm gonna acknowledge that I'm using the same tactics as Wokescolds part. First, so Wokescolds don't just go after somebody for not being woke enough. I used to think that was a definition, but after many, many interactions with these people and dealing with them for the last year or so, I would say, I don't think these people are just concerned about not being progressive enough. I think these people are just want some outlet to like vent their abusive behavior on.
Who are these people? Like, that's why.
Do you want me to start naming names or like laying out?
Well, like I would actually rather you name names than say these people, because these people. What is the definition of a woke school, my man?
It depends on who you ask. It depends on who you ask. I think that I think it is my definition.
But if you ask somebody what the definition of an anarcho-communist is, you're going to probably get a pretty solid answer. But
yes, because no one has written
an SJW.
Because
nobody. It sounds to me like that's just somebody I don't like, my man.
No, these are
Joe
people.
Biden.
Okay, so I understand where you're coming from, okay? The reason why you can define anarcho-communist is because theory has been written. There have been scholars and philosophers throughout centuries that have written about this and have talked about philosophical theory here. Comparing an online internet term to like a political ideology probably isn't the best comparison, but I get where you're coming from here. So Wokescolds.
Well, I've never heard of the term bi-lesbian before this year, and I can tell you what that means. So why can't you tell me what the definition of Wokescold?
I can tell you right now, my definition of Wokescold are people who are on the left that vent their abusive behavior and tendencies towards other leftist figures or leftist people and attack them through an angle of their wokeness, right? They'll say, you deserved your childhood abuse because you were a bigot back then. You deserve to be lied about and have rumors spread about you because I think that you're transphobic. That kind of behavior.
Wait a second. So Wokescold is somebody that gets mad at you for doing a thing that isn't woke, is what you just described.
No, somebody who tries to justify their abusive behavior with an outlook of attacking someone who's not woke enough. But usually they are plenty woke.
So you assume that everybody that attacks you has had abusive behavior done to them.
If they're engaging,
they are sufferers of abuse.
Wait, no, they are engaging in abusive behavior.
They're engaging in abusive behavior, but they are engaging in that abusive behavior because they themselves have suffered abuse. Is that what you said?
Maybe they could have, but I never said that. I'm saying that they are justifying their abusive behavior towards other lefties, me as an example, by saying that we're not woke enough, and they're just attacking us for being what they perceive to be bigots, but usually it's just outright abusive behavior. I mean,
Okay,
like the argument I had like 2 days ago as an example was someone saying,
you literally just only explained exactly what I said at the beginning. They say things that you don't like, therefore they are woke school.
Sorry, repeat that.
Like you literally just said that they say things that you don't like, and you assume that they are saying it because they think that they're woker than you, so you think that they're woke.
Wait, if they just have like a criticism of me, saying I don't do like if they just have a criticism of me, that's fine. They're just somebody with a criticism of me. If they're coming at me and doing something like with the other, like the most recent woke school I've dealt with the other day, who was saying I deserved to get beaten by my mom when I was a kid because I was a reactionary, like that's abusive.
And not just a terrible person.
Because Wokescolds are terrible people, but they use a very predictable pattern of behaviors. I'm not mad. I apologize. I get very excited, okay? All right. Because the Wokescolds, they are terrible people, but Nazis are also terrible people. Why don't we just call Nazis terrible people? Wokescolds are a group of people or a contingent of people on the left that use very predictable methods and behavior.
Definable group. Nazis are a very definable group. Wokescolds, define what a Wokescold is. Ask anybody on the street to define to me what a Wokescold is, and then ask them to define what a Nazi is, and I guarantee you they will not even know what the hell a Wokescold means.
Isn't that argument ad populum? Isn't that like no. Is that what that is? Maybe I'm getting it wrong. I don't think appealing to like if you were to go onto the street and ask people what the definition of Wokescold is, they wouldn't know compared to Nazi. It's a niche term used in very specific internet spaces. I don't really think that's like a good argument for it.
Okay, fair. Yeah, no, you're right. That's not the best argument at all. But the thing is, though, man, is like, define what exactly a Wokescold is then. Because outside of what you've just said, you basically said a Wokescold is somebody that says a thing that I don't like, therefore they're a Wokescold.
Wait. Oh, okay, please. Oh, okay, hold on. The definition that I gave you.
It again, because
people on the left who engage in abusive behavior and use a angle of saying this person isn't woke enough as an excuse for the abusive behavior they are doing unto their victim. They say I am doing this, what they would probably deny is even abuse, to this person because they are a bigot, or I perceive them to be a bigot.
Okay. And that action in and of itself is like murder, and therefore forever after that they are murderers, or therefore Wokescold. Is that what you're saying? So once somebody has done something, called somebody out, said you're a terrible person because you're not as woke as me, they're a Wokescold, unrepentant, never to be changed again.
So if somebody engages in abuse, are they an abuser, never to be like unrepentant, never to change again?
Oh, so your definition of abuse is somebody that says something to you that they find to be not woke enough, and that
no,
is abuse.
My definition of abuse is the example I gave you is literally somebody on Twitter saying I deserved to get beaten by my mom when I was a kid because I was a reactionary. Would you qualify that as like abusive behavior?
Is a terrible, horrible person.
Would you consider that person to be? Is that abusive behavior?
Absolutely, but are they a Wokescold because of that?
Yes, because their justification was I was a bigot.
Yes. Okay.
I am a bigot is what was their justification. That is what a Wokescold is. Somebody who attacks those they perceive as being a bigot, usually falsely, they're usually people on the left, and engage in abusive behavior towards them, and their justification is, I'm just going after a bigot. That is what I define as being a Wokescold. Now, I don't think they're unrepentant and can't change. I don't know why you think I've ever said that. Abusers can change. Anybody can change. They aren't branded with the label Wokescold on their chest with like a hot iron or anything like that. But they are somebody who has a tendency to engage in harmful abusive behavior, I think, especially towards leftist figures that, are trying to advocate for their well-being. And I think that's very, very bad to have those people on the left. A lot of them actually have like a following, many of them do, and they sort of form these communities and form hate mobs towards leftist figures.
Are you serious right now? Hate mobs? Oh my goodness! Yeah, they get a very interesting sense of an interesting way that you view the world, my friend. Okay, so basically, anybody that says something mean to somebody else on Twitter and under the umbrella that they are doing it because they aren't woke enough is a Wokescold. Okay, got it. So basically when I said that Wokescolds and dirtbags are virtually the same, and I sent you the video that I made about this.
I don't think you're being
but
honest right now. Can because you've literally just put words in my mouth saying somebody says mean to something mean to somebody on Twitter. Sure, abusive behavior is mean, but I'm explicitly talking like that sounds like you're trying to dampen what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about overtly abusive behavior.
It sounds to me like you're trying to over-exaggerate what I'm talking about.
I'm not. Well, if you're talking about criticism,
Xander, are you going to let me talk?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so when I was talking before about somebody saying something mean to you on Twitter, right? The majority of the time, and the majority of times when you engage in it, is when people are just saying something that is a minor criticism. That's the truth. And then there are times when you make bigger criticism, or when people engage with you and they engage in, say, larger criticisms, like that whole fucking harem thing, which I don't even know the information on. I don't even want to fucking know the information on that. People say terrible things to you. They do. I agree. That is 100% true. But what you basically explained is somebody that is a Wokescold is somebody that does that says something mean under the guise of they are because they are more woke than somebody else. Okay, well, I can go out onto the street and I can do that to any random person, right? And then what does that mean? Like what exactly is is that any different from regular bullying? Is that any different from being a regular asshole? How is that different? Right? Like I don't see how people would find that fucking minuscule difference right there of making it specifically about, oh well, they're more woke than me. How does that make a difference?
I feel like you're downplaying abuse right now.
Xander, I think that you're trying to make it sound like I'm downplaying abuse.
You've overtly characterized what I've described as being without, like, undeniably abuse as being mean things online. Like
that is not what I said at all.
You've said multiple times. I would explain to you.
One way or the other. I said to you that you have had lots of actual criticism and lots of minor criticisms that weren't actual criticisms that you've still engaged with. You've done it many times. You do it all the time. Like,
sure,
dude, literally.
And I don't call those people Wokescolds. Sure, I don't call those people Wokescolds. They just have if they have a reasonable criticism towards me, I don't call them a Wokescold. If it's just Xander doesn't read enough theory, Xander doesn't.
Before.
When have I implied that you're a Wokescold?
I was a Wokescold.
I mean,
you never said it. You never said it outright. But then the one time I tweeted you and you said, "Look, more of these people that blah 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 blah," basically implying that I was a Wokescold. It was like one of the last tweets that we had with each other.
I don't think I've ever implied that you're a Wokescold.
Like anti-SJWs threw around SJW back in 2016, man. Like, it's such a nothing argument. It doesn't even mean anything anymore. It's such a pointless argument to be having. And I don't understand why you engage in it so much, and I don't understand why you think that it's so necessary to constantly amplify these people's voices whenever they have a criticism with you, because that's what you're doing. You're making their voices louder and making you seem like a victim in every single situation. And yes, sometimes you are a victim, my dude, but like I was saying before, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, they make money off of engagement. You get more engagement every time you make one of these drama videos. Does that equal more money for you? I don't know, but I definitely do see that there is an incentive there for you to constantly engage with people in negative ways. Is that true or not?
I mean, I feel like I'm getting gaslighted live on stream right now.
You're getting gaslighted. Are you serious right now?
Yeah, I am, because I've explained to you multiple times what my definition of Wokescold is, and you're mischaracterizing it repeatedly.
I have never said anything rude to you at all this entire stream. I've only engaged in things that I thought that you were doing, and you've said to me that I apparently am fine with abuse, that I'm minimizing abuse, and now that I'm gaslighting you.
Yes, so because I've described to you multiple times what my parameters are for a Wokescold, and you're saying, so anybody who criticizes you is a Wokescold? And I said, no.
I said anybody who criticizes you under the guise of being woker than you, or that the criticism is based on wokeness.
Yes, and I never described that being what a Wokescold is. I've never described that as being it.
Then describe it again.
A Wokescold is somebody on the left who engages in abusive behavior, not criticism, not productive recommendations, what they should say, or even just saying, I don't like that person. Their content isn't for me. Abusive behavior. Who levies that abusive behavior towards a leftist figure or a leftist person and says, it's okay for me to engage in this behavior, they're a bigot, or they perceive that person as a bigot.
There you go. So So they're a person that engages in abusive behavior based on wokeness.
And justifies it with wokeness.
Okay, they're a person that engages in abusive behavior and justifies it through woke.
Yes.
Okay, they're a person that justifies. Okay, absolutely. Okay, that's totally fine. Who gets to define what the abusive behavior is? And at what point do we get to define whether or not that's woke abuse or not woke abuse?
Okay, so let's say it's just somebody who says, you're a piece of shit, kill yourself. That is not woke abuse. Let's say it's, we'll use the example, or how about we use a different example? Usually it's around my childhood abuse where it happens. I was on No Comment Chick's stream a few weeks ago, and I was sitting in chat, and some very notorious Wokescolds from Twitter, they're the same people who called Peter Coffin a pedophile and started all that drama a while back, were in the chat. I was talking to No Comment Chick about my childhood abuse with my mom and stuff like that, and they were in the chat saying, boo-hoo, poor piggy. His mom wouldn't let him be a bigot and hit him over it. Like, shit like that. I think I can characterize that as abusive behavior. You can never define abusive behavior. Abusive behavior, if I were to think up like a definition off the top of my head, I don't even know the official one, is behavior that causes trauma and upsets the victim of said behavior. Like, that would be my go-to definition of abusive behavior. You can't really fit into a hard box. It's like determined case-by-case basis.
Sure. All right. Yeah. And you know what, Xander? If that's your definition of it, that's a sound one, right? That's a decent definition. I'm not going to say that it isn't. But I'm going to hold you to that, because if you ever criticize anybody and it's not specifically because it's abusive behavior and it's just a criticism, and you call that person a woke school, then I'm going to call you out on that, because you've just perfectly explained what you think a woke school is. So I'll hold you to that. That's fine, right? And I agree with you on that. If you want to use that as a very niche term to describe something that nobody outside of very online communities would even know what it is, then fine. Whatever, I'll let you have that.
Okay,
right? Like, it's not a big fight for me here.
I understand,
right?
and I like you, and I don't want to have any. I want no animosity between us. I promise you. But I do have. There is a root of the question we have to get to here. Do you consider something like what Skylar Zabo did, editing my logo into like a swastika and calling me and Vosh, a baseless accusation, calling me and Vosh class reductionists and bigots? Do you consider that to be abusive behavior?
I think that was his opinion. As far as the
her opinion
with the class reductionist thing, I think that you should probably talk to them about it. Talk to her about it, because you'd actually be surprised. I've had conversations with Zabo several times. They're very, very smart person, and they don't just say things because they want to piss you off, right? So maybe you should have a conversation rather than just assuming and just making a call-out video with them about that.
I watched their live stream.
Was that abusive? Was that abusive? That's not up to me to decide. Did you find it abusive? If you did, then yes, it was abusive, right?
Okay.
Like, you do get to decide if you feel like you're being abused. It's just that and you make a lot of good points here, and I'm listening to you, right? And I have conceded on a few of the points that you've made, because I think that that's an important thing to do when you're having a conversation with somebody. And I like the way that you've addressed the point with Wokescolds not being the same as dirtbags. I like that idea. I like that you made your point very concisely and very to the point. The whole problem that I have, right, starting off very back from the very beginning, right, is this whole idea that you're getting into fights with people on Twitter, on YouTube and on Facebook and all those sorts of things, and it's causing divisions, right? And I'm mentioning this because I'm an outsider looking in, and I'm watching your content, right? I'm a fan of your content. I wouldn't bring up this kind of shit to you if I didn't think that it was important. And I've tried to engage with you on it a bunch of times, right? Like, I tried to send you emails, DMs. I tried to send you personal messages. I tried to send you a bunch of things. Like, I've even tried to set up like contracts and like treaties and all sorts of things with like all of the other leftist YouTubers, so we would stop doing this kind of thing, at least not publicly, and try to address our dirty laundry, in a more productive way, a way that won't end up making more divisions and making our audiences attack each other, right? Because at the end of the day, we need unity. I know that leftist unity is a fucking meme, but we do. We need unity among all working people to get this done, to actually win, right? And to do that, we need the help of everybody that has a big voice, and you're a major voice in that. And that's why I'm coming to you directly, because I see a lot of these conversations not starting with you, but you getting drug into it and you get thrown through the ringer, and at the end you end up making a video about it and getting upset or whatever, right? And more people take you out of context, right? So that's what I want to do here. Is that's what I wanted to do from the very beginning. Is I want to offer you that olive branch and say, hey, let's try to go past this. Let's try to work towards, even if that person is making a stupid, terrible, horrible thing, a big deal out of nothing, right? That we can actually work together and try to resolve those situations, not publicly, unless they absolutely have to be, but in a way that is amicable to everybody involved.
Okay, so to sum that up, you want us to settle like differences between people in a productive way.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And I don't think that doing it publicly all of the time is necessarily the best way. Sometimes, yeah, right? But not almost never is it, especially on the.
Okay, I completely agree that in a perfect world, I even agree with like exactly what you're saying here. That if we have like differences with certain leftist figures, especially among creators, we shouldn't have like drama spectacles out in public for people to see that causes everyone to hate each other. It doesn't do anything for the left. It hurts the left. I completely agree with that. I would much rather settle this in private with people in a productive way and be on at least neutral terms with these people. But I have the unfortunate opinion after doing this for about a year now. I think we've been doing this for about the same amount of time as well. After getting to the size that I've gotten, because I had the same outlook as you do currently when I was when I had like when I was like around 5,000 to 10,000 subs. But around the time I hit 10,000 subs, I started to get abuse from these people, and I realized not everybody who is sending these criticisms towards me, or even even if they're criticisms, but abuse as well, are doing it in good faith. Or even other figures that are calling me out that may act like they're in good faith. A lot of them I realize just don't like me and want an excuse to shit on me, and they aren't interested in having some sort of like they aren't interested in having a treaty or a truce of any kind. They aren't interested in being allies on any of these issues. They'll even turn your back on you. I was like, for an example, I was friends with Guchin for a while. I like Guchin started doing YouTube a little while after I did, and I brought her into me and Vosh's like Minecraft server series we did. I shouted her out a lot. I thought I really loved her videos. She would always like talk very positively of me and Vosh in her videos. But then one day, she started like shit talking us on Twitter and baiting for drama. And like recently, one of Guccian's like most recent drama baits was saying that she felt like Vosh is like Keemstar because as long as she was nice to Vosh, he would shout her out and be nice to her. But she felt like if she was always stepping on eggshells because if she ever did anything wrong, Vosh would nuke her channel. Like this is like not true. Vosh had her on the stream for like multiple times to work out disagreements and stuff like this. This is just a lie. This is just being dishonest and baiting for drama.
I get
like
that.
there are people like that on the
But
left that just aren't interested in this productive,
and I agree with you. You're 100% right. Some people don't want to they don't give a fuck at all about helping out the leftist cause or actually be engaged or whatever. But you do, right? And that's where this cycle can end, is at you, right? And I know that Peter Coffin has criticized me before about saying stuff like that, about that it puts personal onus on a systemic problem. That's true. But the system within Breadtube is small enough right now that we still individually have a bit of a fucking say over what we can do. And especially if it's coming from a channel that's large like yours, right? You have the ability to stop that drama at you. Right, and if you do that, then you're going to end up causing a lot less drama is going to be caused in the long run, right? And as far as Gishin is concerned, with the is it Gushin?
Guchin, I think it's pronounced.
Gushin. As far as Gushin is concerned, with that point about Vosh, I don't think that Vosh would necessarily mean to do that to anybody. I think that Vosh's heart is fundamentally in the right place. But I do know that the sentiment among a lot of people online, and this goes back through to the beginning of YouTube, is that if you don't appease this goes through to all the way back to every single power structure ever, is that if you don't appease the people that are in power, aka Vosh, aka you, aka in some ways me in a smaller way, then people are going to, get attacked. They're going to be berated, and they can have a lot of bad things happen to them. I've gotten into high caliber-ish arguments with other people online before. Hopefully it doesn't happen here because I enjoy your content, but I've had it happen before where I've lost hundreds, sometimes even almost 1,000 subscribers because I got into a bit of a spat with somebody, right? And they had a lot more subscribers than me. So that is a real legitimate fear. And maybe that again is another situation where it would have been more beneficial to, instead of assume something about Keishan, I don't know if they blocked you or whatever it is, but to maybe try to reach out and have a conversation with them and see what they meant, or maybe if maybe if that's maybe that would be a better way to handle it rather than getting into a public
I
spectrum.
actually tried that. You know what Gushin's response was?
I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't
we
been
were
following that.
we were never friends. We were only associates and like business partners. We were never, and just said we were never friends, and like and had unfollowed me without saying anything, and then just started like trying to bait drama, shit talking me.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
And that's just
like,
and that's just one example, right? Like that's just one example off the top of my head of like people who are in the leftist create, like I'm talking about creators, not just like random nobodies on Twitter, but like actual leftist figures who have a fair amount of a following that do engage in this type of behavior. And I think every, this is my theory, right? I think every political group, no matter how correct that group's beliefs are, have abusive people in there and people with abusive tendencies, because abuse is a pretty common behavior that unfortunately in this world. So why, and I think a lot of people on the alt-right or on the right in general, they vent their abuse in a very different way. If you're on the right and somebody who's on the right engages in abusive behavior, they're just going to say kill yourself and call you like the N-word or something like that. That's one way. But people on the left, if they may be on the left but they could also be an abuser, are going to go about it in a very different way. They might be a bit more passive aggressive, they may make up lies about you, or they may try to justify their abuse through like a woke lens, right? So what my mom, what she would do, just as the example, this is actually what the person I was mentioning earlier would justify, was like when she would smack me in the face when I was like 8 years old, and I would like stand up to her and say, no, don't hit me, she would call me a misogynistic little brat and say I'm like attacking her because she's a woman. That would be how she does it. So she was engaging what I would consider Wokescoldy behavior, right? Saying, "Oh, I'm a woman, and you're a misogynist. If you stand up to my abuse." That is what I'm talking about here. That tendency. I think abuse that comes from people on the left is just done and justified in a very different way than abuse from people on the right. Because abuse from people on the right is so obvious and in your face. It's calling someone the N-word and telling them to kill themselves. But on the left, the abusive people are a little more covert about it. They're a little bit more passive aggressive.
It's almost more sinister, right? Because
Yeah.
And it hurts more because it's coming from somebody that you care about, or like not necessarily you care about them, but somebody that you would ostensibly, hopefully, be caring about, somebody that you want to be a comrade with and work together and do all these amazing things, and then they come out and attack you and hurt you, and it hurts so much more. I get that, dude. I get that all the time. Like,
here, give me a second.
in my comment section. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no worries. Oh yeah, no worries. But like I was saying, like I've been like I only got into doing YouTube like not professionally, semi-professionally or whatever with this channel at the beginning of this year. But ever since I started YouTube, that's been a constant thing, right? Is people just always are just fucking work, and I wake up every morning to probably at least 5 or 10 mean, terrible comments, stuff about my hair, stuff about my sexuality, stuff about like all kinds of stuff, right? And that it really makes me upset. And I don't want to say that I have the thickest skin in the world, because I don't. It makes me actually, sometimes it made me upset back in the day. Now it doesn't make me upset because it's happened for so many fucking years. You grow the skin, right? You definitely grow the skin. But at the beginning, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right at all, and it felt like it was just a constant fucking barrage, a constant attack, and I didn't like. So I totally understand where you're coming from on this, and when you it's kind of like I can't remember what the word that people use is, but when you police somebody's tone policing. Hey, there you go. When you tone police people for the way that they respond, it's never a good. And I don't want to tone police you for the way that you did any of those engagements with those people, right? You felt at the time that it was the right thing to do, and I respect that. I don't personally think it was the right thing to do, but hindsight's 2020, and there's no way that you can know whatever is right every single time, every moment of the day. But moving forward, right, we can work towards making sure that we can make those situations right. And if like I'm friends with a lot of the people that you have spats with, right? A lot of the Wokescold people that I'll put in quotes, not the really heinous ones that have done horrible things to people, but some of the ones that just level, rather cringy criticism every once in a while. I'm friends with some of those people. And if they piss you off and they do something to really aggravate you or whatever, I would, in every instance, take several hours out of my day to mediate and mitigate that conflict. I have a background in conflict mediation. I would love to do that. I would volunteer my services in a second, because I'd rather see that happen and see from that an equitable, good solution come from it, rather than more division, more hatred, and more people hating you or another person based on things that they didn't say or have never, or that nobody's even met them at all, ever even seen their content.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from there. Yeah, I mean, I try my best to try to, like, if I see one of these people online, I'll be like, hey, do you want to, like, talk? Do you want to have a discussion? Do you want to come on my stream? And they'll usually say no, call me, like, a rape, like, a lot of the time, they call me, like, a rapist nowadays. And they'll go on with their day, and then they'll go to, like, their Twitter groups and continue to, like, make shit up about me and spread that around. And unfortunately,
if they're going to call you a rapist, that's not the kind of person I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
that kind of person can go fuck themselves.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the average person that you would consider a Wokescold, right? Somebody that's engaging in possibly abusive behavior, maybe more or less annoying asshole behavior, but they're doing it through a woke lens. But maybe that person has had history with you. Maybe that person has only ever heard mad criticisms of you and never actually engaged with you in person, right? There are so many different reasons why people have a fucked up view or opinion on other people, especially online.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it tends to be the case. I mean, there's not much I can do, there. Well, hey, I gotta move on to the next segment because I gotta start wrapping things up. Is there anything you wanted to say before we finish this up?
No, man, just that I appreciate your content. I really do enjoy your work, and I watch a lot of it. So, and everybody in my house watches a lot of it too. So, yeah, thank you very much for doing a good job, man.
Thank you. Have a good one, dude.
No problem. Yeah, you too. Talk to you
See
later.
ya. Okay, chat, listen. Alright. I do not believe that he was, like, trying to gaslight me or actively attempting to engage in abuse apology or anything like that. I don't think that's what was happening, okay? I think this is probably like almost like a repeat of what happened with Mexi, where she was like, no, people don't need to give you a reason for why they want you to apologize for something you did. I think it was probably a repeat of that. But I feel like I did a lot better job than Vosh did of explaining why these people engage in abusive behavior and why what they're doing isn't just, oh, it's just criticism, it's just small criticisms. That's where I had an issue, where it was being characterized that way, but I think that ended up being somewhat productive towards the end there, so hopefully that was good.